Hey yo, what's good everyone? Welcome to my channel. This is Mauro and today we're gonna react to another episode of Geography Now. This time we're gonna be discovering New Zealand, and I felt like I needed to do this video because we're reacting to tons of stuff about Australia. So New Zealand being part of the continent of Australia, we gotta do this, and we're gonna be reacting to other countries or islands. I mean, they're all islands, right, in the oceanic continent. Yeah, and we're gonna learn something new, you know? We don't want to stay too much into just one topic. We want to learn everything about the world in this channel, and this flight too, I think. But yeah, guys, without any further ado, let's learn something new about New Zealand.
Now, when I think of New Zealand, really only one word seems to come to mind. Tau matawhaka tangi hanga ko au au o tamatea tsuri pu ka ka piki maunga horo nuku
Maori.
whenua kita na tahu.
We gotta make some reaction to rugby, yeah? I've been reacting to plenty of Australian football, American football, hockey, baseball. We still haven't done a reaction on rugby, yeah? So if you have any good video for me to check out about rugby, I mean, I've seen some games, but I really don't understand the rules. So yeah, if you want me to react to something about rugby, let me know in the comments.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbs. New Zealand is one of those places where a few people have made a powerful image for themselves. It's one of the last places on Earth to be discovered and inhabited by humans. And when they arrived, it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Mostly because there were these massive 12 feet tall bird monsters. We'll get into that in a bit. But first, New Zealand is not only a key player in the ocean nations, but a geographic anomaly. As in, half the time when you look at artwork or decorations or newscasts or even educational books, New Zealand is forgotten from the map. Kiwis even joke about it. Even their government website 404 page not found website pokes fun at it. Anyway, New Zealand, or AOTEAROA, is located in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, about 1,200 miles or 2,000 kilometers off the coast of Australia, and about 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers from the nearest major islands of Fiji, Tonga, and New Caledonia. Meaning, technically, France is their closest neighbor. The country is made up of two.
I remember that New Caledonia. We gotta check out that one after this one. I remember New Caledonia. There was a French series that I love so much on television. They will always show us here in Italy in television. And there was that French guy that fell in love with a girl from New Caledonia. Then she went away and he went all over the world just to find her. And then he will find Aboriginal people that, I mean, I don't know if you call them Aboriginal in other country besides Australia, but yeah, there was native from that place, you know. It was a mess. I just watched this series. It was pretty cool because that place looked amazing. The beaches, the food, everything looked amazing. Wow. We gotta react to New Caledonia. That's something, after seeing that series when I was like 14, 15 years old, it stuck on my brain, you know? Always think like, I wanna visit that place, I wanna learn more about that place. It's gonna be a good occasion to do it soon.
Two main large islands, aptly named the North Island, or Te Ika a Maui, which makes up about 42% of the landmass, yet holds about 3/4 of the population, and the larger, yet less populated South Island, or Te Waiponamu, at about 56% of the landmass. The remaining 2-ish% of the landmass is made up of hundreds of interior and outlying islands, 33 main ones that are either around the main two islands, like the largest one, Stewart Island, just south of South Island. Then you have the outlying island chains, like the northernmost Kermadec Islands, the easternmost Chatham Islands, and the sub-Antarctic southernmost point, the Campbell Islands. The country is a unitary state divided into 16 councils, 11 regional councils, and 5 unitary regional councils. The Chatham Islands act as their own special territorial authority. The second largest city, Wellington, is the capital, the southernmost capital in the world. However, Auckland up north is the largest city, which holds about 1/3 of the entire population of the country, with the largest and busiest airport, Auckland International.
I was sure that Auckland was the capital of New Zealand. That's crazy.
Otherwise, Christchurch on South Island is the 3rd largest city and holds the 2nd busiest airport, Christchurch International. But wait, that's not all. The sovereignty claim extends even further, and then you get the 3 New Zealand realm territories and free association island nations. These are Tokelau, the Cook Islands, and Niue. Tokelau is considered a non-self-governing dependent territory. It also has a territorial dispute with American Samoa over Swains Island, whereas the Cook Islands and Niue are labeled as self-governing states in free association with New Zealand. Finally, you have the cross-dependency, which is New Zealand's claim to Antarctica, which of course under the Antarctic Treaty does not actually fall under their sovereignty, but you know, a lot of people like to say they have something they can't. Whew, for a nation that doesn't even show up half the time on maps, there's a lot going on here.
But wait, if New Zealand is just an island in the middle of the Pacific, which continent is New Zealand a part of?
Ah, good question. That is a question that has kind of stumped cartographers for centuries. In the simplest sense, categorically, New Zealand is part of the broader region known as Oceania, which is basically just Australia plus everything else in Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. Technically, Australia and New Zealand together are called Australasia. However, it's weird because New Zealand doesn't lie on the same continental shelf as Australia. This has led to the consideration of New Zealand belonging to a newer subregion known as Zealandia, classified by some dude in the 90s as either a continental fragment or a microcontinent made up of a submerged continental crust shelf that expands all the way from New Caledonia to an empty spot in the ocean just south of the Campbell Islands. 93% of Zealandia is submerged, with New Zealand being the largest protruding segment. Either way, however you want to categorize it, New Zealand is kind of strange.
Wait, go back to the self-governing island thing. Do they belong to New Zealand, or are they full countries?
Good question. It's kind of like this. Okay guys, look, the British just kind of put you under my jurisdiction, so I guess that means you're all New Zealand citizens, okay?
Yeah, but we all have our own languages and customs and want to write a constitution for ourselves with free association status. We're basically countries in our own right, but under your overarching sovereignty, I guess.
Like, your military can come in for defense, but otherwise we got everything else covered.
I mean, guys, I have less than 2,000 people on less than 5 square miles of land on 3 islands. I think I'll just become a dependent territory state.
All right, fair enough. 2 kind of countries with loose ties and 1 dependent territory country with stronger ties. Got it.
Plus, hey, I became the first completely solar-powered nation in the world.
Not exactly fully functional sovereign nation state by definition, but yeah, good for you. Some places of interest in New Zealand might include the world's steepest street at a gradient of 38 degrees, the National Museum, Auckland's Sky Tower, you can actually jump off of it, the Rotorua Geysers and traditional Maori Village, Rainbow's End and Splash Planet, the International Antarctic Center,
cool.
Hobbiton, so many wine fields like the one in
Lord of the
Marlborough,
Rings.
90 Mile Beach, which is actually only 56 miles, Waitomo Caves with glowworms, Frying Pan Lake, and the Meraki spherical boulders. And honestly, I could go on and on with all the natural wonders of this country, but that would take like 50 videos, and we gotta cram as much as we can in this one. So let's just...
So if you have any recommendations, guys, you know what to do. You know what to do. I'm gonna do them.
talk about all the natural stuff of New Zealand, shall we? Now, New Zealand is an outdoors country, world-renowned for its mind-blowingly wonderful landscape displayed in a number of films and movies.
Fun fact, the Lord of the
Power
Rings
Rangers
gives
were
them
from
so
New
much
Zealand.
publicity and tourism money that they even have a Minister of the Rings in their parliament.
Oh, do they now?
You wrote the script for the episode, and I'm just reading off the teleprompter, so I figured you would know that.
I did. First of all, the country is located in the Ring of Fire on the convergence of the Pacific and Australian plates that creates the mountainous southern Alps of the southern island. Here you can find the tallest peak, Mount Cook or Aoraki, at over 12,000 feet or 3,700 meters, whereas across the Cook Strait, the smaller Kaweka Range can be found on the North Island. This, in return, makes the country subject to earthquakes and volcanic activity. There are about 83 known volcanoes of all types, and the largest active one being Ruapehu on North Island. Otherwise,
It's crazy. Imagine in Italy we got only 3 volcanoes.
you can see other volcanic wonders like the dormant Banks Peninsula on South Island and the eerily perfect circular Mount Taranaki on the west side of North Island. Just to skip away, you find the largest lake, Lake Taupo in the Taupo caldera, one of the largest supervolcanoes on Earth.
We gotta make some reaction to volcanoes. It's something that I really like, always liked. So we gotta make some reaction to volcanoes. If you have any good videos about volcanoes, please let me know down in the comments.
On Earth. From there, the lake is drained by the longest river of the country, the Waikato. Now, New Zealand is interesting because due to its shape, there is no part of the country that is more than about 80 miles or so from the ocean. The flatter valleys on the sides of the mountains are where most people live and produce crops and livestock. Skip a little further west and you get the least inhabited and difficult to access, but most breathtaking part of New Zealand, the Fjordland. Steep cliffs plunging into the Tasman Sea, with Milford Sound being the most popular spot and the only one accessible by road. New Zealand ranks as one of the top most landform diverse countries on Earth, having everything from alpine forests, glaciers, geothermal geysers. They even have a small desert in the middle of North Island. And on some of the coasts, you have tropical beaches with magnetic black sand containing magnetite. Seriously, I still have some. Check it out. This is from Piha Beach in North Island. Whoa, it sticks on. Now, the one thing about New Zealand that set it apart upon discovery is that other than 2 species of bat, the entire island had no mammals prior to human encounter. Now, this is usually the part where Noah comes in, but he had a scheduling conflict. They couldn't be here today, so therefore, I saw Min Random Hannah. Hannah, take it away.
The country is a bird haven with over 200 species, over half endemic to New Zealand. And the funny thing, many of which are flightless. It's like the flightless bird capital of the world. Species such as the kakapo, the world's only flightless nocturnal parrot, and they have more species of penguin than anywhere else on the planet. At one point a long time ago, they used to have the moa, a 12-foot tall monster, until it was hunted by the native Maori to extinction. Then you have the national animal, the famous kiwi, a flightless bird which comes in 5 forms on both islands. Known for their hair-like feathers, long beaks with nostrils, making them some of the only few bird species that can smell. Otherwise, with flying birds, you have the kia, the world's only alpine parrot. And if you see one, they are curious creatures, unafraid of humans, that love to chew on shiny objects or rubber.
Seriously, those guys tried to steal my stuff one time.
Outside of the bird world, you can find reptiles like the tuatara, which has a third parietal eye on the top of its head, or the giant weta, the heaviest insect on Earth.
Oh my god.
Resource-wise, the country is known for its huge dairy farming and livestock industry. Jade or greenstone is a precious stone mined and sold here, as well often carved into jewelry or traditional Maori tools and ornament. Besides all that though, much of the country makes money through tourism, specifically outdoor tourism, specifically Queensland on South Island. This place offers everything from skydiving, paragliding, and zorbing, which by the way, the Kiwis invented. And speaking of Kiwi inventions, food! Kiwis are without a doubt seafood folk. Native species like...
Wait, what? What are they talking about? Kiwi was the bird, so Kiwi is the name also of the population of New Zealand. That's confusing. I think I'm a little lost. Before it said the Kiwi was a bird, now it's saying the Kiwis invented. I don't think the bird invented those things. So Kiwi is the name of the population as well. Let me know.
Gurnard, hoki, hake, hapuku, pawa, and crayfish are made into numerous dishes. Cooked, raw, smoked, steamed, battered, and fried with chips. If that's not your thing, some non-fishy Kiwi dishes might include things like roast lamb, savory meat pies, hokey pokey ice cream, Kiwi style...
Wait, oh my god. Well, we're gonna go back to that burger, but first I wanna see
things like roast lamb,
wow, that's crazy. That reminds me of the British meat pie they make. Wow, but this one looks like an actual pie. That's crazy. Wow.
Savory meat pies, hokey pokey ice cream, Kiwi style burger,
Oh my
honey,
god.
kumara, LNP
I love sweet
pavlova
potatoes.
cake, and one of the most traditional Maori dishes, hangi. And speaking of cultural tradition, we go to...
Thank you, Hannah. Feel free to follow her on Instagram.
No problem.
Yeah, that's the thing now. Now, this is going to be the best part of the episode because the people of New Zealand, known as Kiwis, are the biggest treasure you'll find. First of all, the country has about 5 million people and often ranks as one of the top 3 ease of business index countries in the world with the least corruption. At somewhere around 74%, the country is made up primarily of peoples of European descent, mostly of English, Scottish, and Irish ancestry. About 15% of the country is native Maori, 7% Pacific Islander,
Maori.
and the rest are mostly Asian of various countries like China,
I didn't
Korea,
know.
and
I thought it
Japan.
was
Yes, by the
Maori.
way, it's pronounced Maori, not Maori. They use the New Zealand dollar as their currency. They use the type I plug outlet, and they drive on the left side of the road. Now, we all know that English is the most widely spoken language in the country with a distinct Kiwi dialect. To outsiders, it sounds just like the Australian one, but they swear it's different. They have some distinct Kiwi words. Here's my Kiwi buddy Jared explaining.
Bro, it's a beaut. I'm off to the dairy. Is that us? Yeah, nah, it's a cracker, but it's ages and we're in the wops. Egg, you're taking the piss. It's close as. Chuck on your jandals and it'll be a piece of piss. Whatever then, only if you stop rocking me up. Stoked. Sweet as.
Nonetheless, there are actually 2 other official languages of New Zealand, Maori and New Zealand Sign Language, making New Zealand the first country to adopt signing as an official language, even though only half of 1% knows it. Now let's talk about culture and the whole Maori thing. The Maori traditionally come from about 100 or so iwi, or tribes or peoples, spread throughout both islands. Most in the north part of the country, the largest being the Ngapuhi at over 100,000 people. Their culture is a huge integral factor that plays into what it means to be Kiwi. I mean, instead of hello, you'll often often hear the Maori word kiora as a greeting.
Kia
Most
ora.
schools teach the Maori language in elementary years, and there are immersion schools as well. In addition, they have a few television channels and radio stations that speak almost entirely in Maori. Today, the majority of
cool.
native speakers are found in the North Island, most heavily concentrated in the Northland and Gisborne and Bay of Plenty regions. And speaking of Maori, we cannot do this episode without talking about the haka. Almost everyone on the island knows one form of the traditional war dance performed by both men and women.
I love
known for its
that.
aggressive movements, loud chanting, and intimidating facial expressions. Very often it's performed at sporting events.
Yeah. That's something that gives me chills, you know. Whenever I think about rugby, that's what it comes to mind. We gotta definitely make some reaction to rugby. But that's amazing, you know. That's amazing. I don't know, it makes you get chills when you watch something like that. It's so cool.
The haka is not only used at games or as a
Oh,
means
also
to
the
intimidate,
military.
though. It can be used in a variety of situations, ranging from birthday parties, funerals, even weddings, where the people celebrate the union
Funeral.
of two people happily, and everyone takes part in it, whether you are ethnically Maori
is
or
so
non-Maori.
cool.
It's a tradition that really unites everyone on the island, regardless of race. Pretty cool, right? And now let's talk
Yes.
about tattoos. And actually, let's have another co-host do this. Let's see, which options do I have? Who can I select? Let's see, Hannah already did one. Why not Ken? All right, Ken, take it away.
Wow, I love the editing on this one.
You might occasionally come across someone with kirituhi, or skin art, or tamoko, which
Yeah,
are
that's
face
too
tattoos.
much.
There's so much information that goes into this, but basically, Maori tradition did not have a specific written script. Instead, they use a documented information and history through a series of wood carvings and tattoos. No two are alike, as each person's tattoos told a specific story of who they were. Generally, the left side is reserved for the father's lineage, and the right side the mother's. The patterns can describe everything from tribe, rank, work, expertise, athletic accomplishments, and so on. In other news,
That's
Kiwis
amazing.
are pretty athletic. You cannot talk about New Zealand with
I always wonder, you know, I never got a tattoo. I always wanted to get a tattoo, but I don't know why I never got one. Who knows, maybe in the future. But I always wonder about the meaning of each tattoo. I don't know, that's something that always, I don't know, I think that's amazing, you know, you gotta really love the art that you're gonna put on your body. That's amazing.
without mentioning rugby. They are three-time World Cup championship winners, and often when they don't win, they place in the top three.
Thank you, Ken. Feel free to follow him on Instagram.
Which one is the best country in rugby? If I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to be Fiji, right?
And now it's time to talk
Maybe I
about
said
history.
something stupid. I know Italy is the, is the worst one. There's like the Six Nations Cup, Italy is always the least ranked. But I think the best ones are, New Zealand, perhaps France, Australia, and Fiji, right? I'm not sure which one is the best though. I'll say Fiji, but maybe I'm saying something stupid. I don't know.
Quickest way I can summarize it. Bird Island, no humans. Maori come in from Polynesia, maybe sometime around the 1200s. Maori Pa settlements established. Moa bird is hunted to extinction. Tribal battles for land. Abel Tasman becomes the first European to come in contact. They kind of forget about it until the British come in by like 100 years later. For a while, they just kind of traded with the Maori. Intertribal wars with the new weapons that they acquired by the Europeans. Missionaries, British colony, New Zealand wars, Treaty of Waitangi, controversy with mistranslation. Self-government within the British Empire. Women's suffrage. Massive immigration wave. World War I, they play a role in Pacific War.
They forgot to mention, I think, the Anzac Day that we reacted to before from the Battle of Gallipoli, that we check out reacting to stuff from Australia. I mean, that was something commemorated by both the Australian and New Zealand people, right? I mean, that's what I saw. It was also the New Zealand army fighting for that battle.
Warfare against German-occupied Samoa. World War II, they play a role again in the Pacific, but this time against the Japanese in Papua New Guinea. Statute of Westminster Adoption Act. Muldoon years. 1980 reforms. 1990s and early 2000s, business really starts to boom. Earthquake in Christchurch. Some notable people from New Zealand or of Kiwi descent might include people like Hongi Hika, Hone Heke, Te Puea Herangi, Maui Pomare, Potatau Te Ferofero, Ernest Rutherford, Kate Shepard, Sir Apirana Ngata, Sir Edmund Hillary, Sir Peter Jackson, Jacinda Ardern, Russell Crowe, Jonah Lomu,
Russell
Sir
Crowe,
Colin
wow.
Meads, Dame Fina Cooper, Flight of the Conchords.
Wait, I always thought Russell Crowe was Australian. I don't know. I'm stupid.
Bruce
I don't know.
McLaren, Catherine Mansfield, Lord, oh, and the meme page Dolan Dark, I was told. Yeah, quite a few cool Kiwis out there, which brings us to our next segment, the Kiwi Crew. They're friends, the Friend Zone. Alright, diplomatically speaking, New Zealand, for lack of a better term, is basically like Australia's Canada. They get along with nearly everyone, and unless if it's a rugby match, it's hard to harbor any animosity towards them. And even if it is a rugby match, it's like, okay, you guys can win. Just do that haka thing again. First of all, as part of numerous international organizations, New Zealand has harnessed an international network of alliances since its inception. For one, South Africa, Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile have had close links as members of the Convention for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources. These 5 nations kind of act as like the southern gateways to Antarctica, and they hold a high level of responsibility when it comes to monitoring the South Seas. China has an interesting, kind of good, but kind of controversial relationship with New Zealand. Not only have Chinese immigrants been living in New Zealand since the 19th century, but in 2008, a bold move with a free trade agreement was established, and today they are the second largest import and export partner. The problem is the housing market. Many Chinese investors have bought out property in metropolitan areas that remain unused and empty for the purpose of real estate appreciation. This has left many Kiwis unable to live in the houses in their own country. This has frustrated many of them for a long time, leaving them to ask the government for reforms in foreign investment policy. As a former British colony, they've always been closely linked to the UK, and UK citizens, often Scottish, choose to migrate and live in New Zealand. Problem is distance. New Zealand is one of the furthest members in the Commonwealth from the UK, and over time the UK relations waned as the UK paid more attention to the EU. Nonetheless, they've grown up, don't need to hold mommy's hand anymore, and they can handle their own affairs. Then we get to the quadfecta, the USA, Canada, and Australia. There is somewhat of an unspoken, unbreakable bond between these 4. New Zealand has fought alongside the US in almost every major global event from the 20th century and on. There was a slight hiccup in the ANZUS Security Treaty in the 80s in which they decided to initiate a nuclear-free zone in their territorial waters. Nonetheless, relations are still strong and they are considered one of the closest allies. Canada and New Zealand are very close though. They both think very similarly and are both Commonwealth nations with the same queen as their technical head of state. Both share similar views on a variety of issues. Both are the smaller versions of a bigger neighbor that gets all the attention. Business, trade, and tourism is strong between them, and in a way they kind of love each other for all these reasons. When it comes to their best friend, however, as much as they love to poke fun, mock, ridicule, and spit on each other, they cannot deny that Australia is the closest. Australia even has a clause in its constitution that allows New Zealand to become a part of their country if they should ever want to for whatever reason, although New Zealand is like, thanks, but no. Australia is not only the largest trading and business partner, but also has the closest history and culture. The two have a unique Trans-Tasman agreement that states that citizens of each country can migrate and have automatic residency. The two go hand in hand, however, when Australia isn't looking, Canada kind of slips in and they kind of go off on secret dates. In conclusion, as humanity's last major expedition, you can imagine how the first settlers must have felt when they approached on this unknown world of glaciers, volcanoes, glowing caves, geysers, and giant 12-foot tall bird monsters. You don't need Lord of the Rings. New Zealand already is a real-life fantasy. Stay tuned, Nicaragua is coming up next.
Wow, this was really interesting. There was many things that I didn't know. I didn't know basically anything about New Zealand besides the wait, I forgot already. The Maori tribes, and of course the Kiwi, but I didn't even know which bird was that. But yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed my reaction. If you want me to check out any more videos about New Zealand, you just gotta type a comment and I'm gonna try to comply very soon. But yeah, this is it for today. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like to the video, and I will see you next time.